And we're back at the Iron Sights podcast. We're at the CalFIA, that is the California Force Instructors Association Conference in Napa, California. I got Scott Savage from Savage Training Group here. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm stoked to be here. I just sat through your presentation this morning at the conference, learned a ton. Admittedly, this is a little it's very outside my lane. I'm not a cop, never been a cop, for people listening that don't know the story. I'm just a dude, but have been fortunate enough to be kind of invited into some circles where I get an opportunity to kind of explore things that I'm passionate about. One of those things is just providing information to people. I've been in the training business and the fitness side of the world my entire career, most of my life now. It's just kind of what I know. And to pay you a little bit of like a public compliment right off the bat, I also, for a long time in my career, was out there training people that are coaches or training business systems and implementing new programs for a very large company. And I got some really cool training behind the scenes on how to do that really well. And lately, I've been talking to quite a few folks that are on the training end of the game, whether that's in an advanced training unit or combatives or driving, shooting. If you watch the show, if anybody watches the show, you know we talk a lot of firearms training a lot of times. We talk about the hard skills. But today what I listened to and how I watched you present it was very skillful. And so I want to get into that a little bit, just kind of setting the stage for today. Your ability to present information and the density of that information, but how you're able to kind of take the complex, and uncomplicate it. For a dude like me, who's coming in from the outside looking in, sitting in a room with 249, other folks that do this for a living, it was really good. So I feel grateful to be here and to have you on the show. So like I said, thanks for being here, man.
No, thanks for having me. I think that is what you just mentioned. That's the skill of a good instructor, is when you can take a complex subject and make it easy to understand. And there's a lot of folks that are instructors that I think sometimes just want to sound like the smartest guy in the room. They're using big words, they're using big concepts, but to the extent you can, if you can understand it and then explain it to somebody in simple terms, it's always provides more clarity. And people, when you're clear about something, then you retain it. You can actually use it. So.
It's vital. And I just think about in my own journey of coaching different types of people coming from different backgrounds. You've got the highly analytical, the very kinesthetic, people that ask a lot of questions, people that nod their head a lot or don't, the ones that are even tough to read. When you stand in front of a group of people and you're trying to deliver information to professionals, particularly that carries the gravity of the information that I think you and Savage Training Group are trying to deliver to people or are delivering to people, that skill is vital. Otherwise, what are we doing, right? You're just regurgitating information. You're hitting the check boxes. The death by PowerPoint can very easily happen. But what I watched today was a very engaged crowd, kind of hanging on every word, and it moved very, very fluidly. And so that said, I'm excited for this conversation because I think it'll do the same. And I mentioned to you just before we started, we could probably go on for 4 hours because I nerd out on stuff and I could probably dig into this, but I want to keep this organized and give people some perspective on the things that you did cover and a little bit more perspective on how you're covering them as we go through. But this is about you, not about me, and the questions that I want to ask. So let's just start with you, man. Let's talk a little bit about your career in law enforcement, the transition into Savage Training Group, and what you guys are doing. You can start and finish wherever you want, man.
Yeah. So Scott Savage, born and raised in California in Silicon Valley. Before it was Silicon Valley, we just used to be a bunch of apple orchards or cherry orchards and peach orchards and stuff like that. Still live there today. Cop for 24 years, retired in 2023. And before I was a cop, I was a paramedic. Before that, I was an EMT. So since 19 years old, that's all I've ever done is worked in public safety. So long time working in like emergency services. And I realized even from my paramedic days that I really love training. I think training is like if you don't have the experience, sometimes training can supplement some of that, right? And if the training is good and replicates the real world, it can really change performance in the field. So I've always enjoyed training and I really thought that was great. Early on in my police career, I learned very quickly that what most stuff that's called police training isn't training. It wouldn't actually meet the textbook definition of training. It's like it's information or it's compliance activity. Like, you're a firearms guy, perfect example. Most police firearms training, something that's called training, is guys standing on the 15-yard line, 10-yard line, shooting at a paper target, making nice groupings in paper. And we go, hey, Scott, you're trained.
Qualified.
You check the box. That activity is just compliance activity. That is to insulate the department from lawsuits. It is nothing about training you to gunfight, to be in the real world and make those kinds of decisions. So I realize, and every subject we do in law enforcement is similar to that. So I just learned a long time ago that, man, I want to do something different. I want to do something that actually helps cops perform in the field. And I had taught for another training company. I had taught, in our little in-service trainings at the department for years and years. And about 2018, I just thought to myself, I think I could do this better. I think I could do my own thing. And if I had my own company, I would do things this way, and I would make it like the best possible training using the best instructors. And I had like lofty goals.
Big ideas,
I had big ideas, right? And so I launched the company in January 1st, 2019, called it the Savage Training Group. If you look at our YouTube comments, you'll see people like, who would call their law enforcement training savage? But I'm like, well, it is my name.
Right.
And so right now we've really grown, and now we've got like 20 instructors, and we're teaching all over the nation. And our goal is to transform law enforcement training from the death by PowerPoint, check the box nonsense that you just described into something that is effective and helps cops perform in the field.
So my experience again, that word gets used a lot, and it's going to come up again because even when we start talking about, proper language for officers to use and what's going to need to be used in court and things like that, that word comes up a lot. So when I say it, it's just from my exposures and my experience to things like this or other types of trainings that I've been invited to and been able to take place in. However, that said, I think what I took away early, or what I was getting early, was what you were saying. And what the disconnect for me was, I have an expectation of law enforcement, and I've recognized, and I recognized it was a real smack to the face. Like, my expectation of law enforcement was unrealistic, not because of the person, but because of many, many things. And they start at one place and they go very deep into different layers. Without like kind of rehashing other podcasts I've done with other folks where we kind of get into that a little bit more, the reality of that is I was seeing things happen on the street in my neighborhood, to my business, to my family, to my friends and my neighbors, that for me was disturbing. And I couldn't figure out why. Like, to me, that's a gross, I think it's injustice that this thing just happened and there's really no consequence to the person that committed this crime. And in some cases, by law, it's a crime, yet they're not getting arrested. They're not even getting a citation in some cases. Sometimes they're not even being talked to, right? It's just like, well, it's no longer a problem, so we're going to kind of move on from the day. And when I would have these interactions, and then folks in the neighborhood or members of my gym or friends would kind of hear about it, and I tried not to make it very public because I didn't want to, like, I have business to run here. Like, I need people coming down here. The point was they were asking me questions, and I had to ask the officers questions that I wasn't satisfied with the answers. And at first, I was bitter about that. I'm like, you guys, like, why are you making this so difficult? Like, it doesn't have to be that difficult. But what I realized was they don't know how to articulate it. They don't actually know what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing. They just know that there's a feeling out there, or there's some kind of friction out there that they feel like they're prevented at some level at doing the job that I'm asking, or I expected them to do. So I had an unrealistic expectation, and I wanted answers for that. Well, what I've learned, obviously, is there's a lot of reasons for certain things. And I think depending on where you may be in the country, what municipality you're working for and things, obviously that's very different too. So talking to a family that lives in Texas or Tennessee or, wherever they happen to be living, where they're going, dude, that shit just wouldn't fly here. And I'm like, yeah, so why does it fly here? And I don't think when people get the message, the public is what I'm coming from. I'm just a civilian and out there trying to do my thing. They miss the point. And I think the information that you're providing and how you're providing it and what you just said needs to be talked about more. So that said, what are the things that you're talking to people about? Who's your audience? Like, who's bringing you in, and what type of training are we actually talking about here?
Yeah, so our audience is sworn law enforcement officers. That's who Savage Training Group provides training to. I mean, we get contracted by security companies and high-tech people to come provide some training, but that's not what we're majoring in. Our major is training for law enforcement officers and trying to truly prepare them for the realities of what's happening on the street. And one of the main ways we're doing that is not training in silos, is trying to train holistically. In other words, like, you can't just do a firearms training day where all you talk about is firearms and you left out the law. You can't talk about, just de-escalation. We should just de-escalate and all this stuff. And you left out the using force on people. Those are silos and it doesn't work. And that's how law enforcement is trained generally now. And that's why you see what you're seeing on the street. I watch the same videos you do of cops doing crazy stuff. And you're like, what?
How did this happen?
How is this happening?
Right.
Grab him, tackle that dude or shoot this guy or whatever you're seeing, or they're shooting the wrong guy.
Right.
And when I watch it, from being deeply immersed in this industry, I can tell you why that's happening. I could actually point probably back to the training they received and why some of the stuff you're seeing, the officer was trained to behave that way, or there is no training to prepare them for that. Most police training is classroom-based, no sharp corners, death by PowerPoint, check a box, everybody wins. There's no real test.
Teach to the test if there is one. Yeah,
and it's like and that's most in-service training, okay? Most academy training is really archaic and really old. We march around. You're never going to march when you're a cop. You've got to be in shape, Scott. You got to be in shape. You got to pass the PT test for the academy. But then when you become a cop, you'll never see a PT standard again. Mm-hmm. Right there. It's like, well, how is it important in the academy when it's not important when I'm working?
I've asked this question many times.
It's like it's a head scratcher, right? And to your point of what your expectation is of the police, I have the same expectation. When I call 911 at my house, I have an expectation of what the police will do, right? I just so happen to understand deeply what they're up against, right? And the police are not the police. It's not the police. A cop in Texas, a cop in California, a cop in New York, a cop in a rural, a cop in an urban. The only thing that's similar about them is that they wear a similar looking uniform. Mm. There is 180,000 police agencies, something like that across the nation. Average size 20 officers. 20.
That's average.
Pretty different on training standards, hiring standards, and all that stuff. So
resources, everything.
Resources. We're not on the same page. And to your expectation when your place is getting broken into, when you see the homeless guy using drugs outside your house, your business, especially here in California, you expect the police are going to come deal with it, right? The problem that is happening not only in this state, but in many states across the nation is the goalpost for police officers keeps moving. Mm-hmm. It would be like if you're playing football and every time you try to score a pass, the goalpost kept moving. Hey, Scott, throw me the ball. And I'm running and the goalpost keeps moving it is a unwinnable scenario. And so what we're seeing across the nation now is that cops, because they're actually pretty bright people, are going, well, time out. When I do the job that I was trained to do, that it says I'm a cop. When I use force on someone, look down at my belt. There's only weapons.
Right.
When I use force, now I'm the
bad guy.
I'm the bad guy. And then when I go to court, they're saying, you should have just de-escalated that guy. And
I was going to get to that word.
The guy's got a baseball bat and he's trying to beat my brains in. Why didn't you just talk to him? And now what we're seeing sort of 2020 and onward is not only cops being sued, which is like civil exposure, civil suits. We're now seeing police officers facing criminal exposure. And all of us who are cops signed up to do this job knowing we could be killed in the line of duty, right? We knew that. We didn't sign up to go to jail, though. I didn't sign up to go to prison for doing what I thought was the right thing to do, which I was trained to do. So you're seeing cops disengaging, being like, yeah, listen, I know that guy technically committed a crime, but see, if I use force on him, it's going to look this way, and then I'm going to go to court, and then I'm going to be IA'd and all this kind of stuff. The expectation that the public has is different than even the expectation the officers had. Why? Because the goalpost keeps moving.
So you sort of answered it, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, and just to not so that I can hear you repeat yourself, but what's the consequence of this? Like, what are you seeing? And I think when I ask that question, what I'm asking is like, as you continuing to evolve the business and you're in front of more people and the goalposts continue to move here, what's the consequence of that? What are you seeing in real time with the people that are coming to get this training and where they lie in that spectrum of, being closer to the goalpost than some versus some that are just so far away? Like, I don't know, like, what does that stratification look like? Like, how bad is it? How good is it? Are we catching up? All of this kind of stuff.
It's bad in the sense that there's a lot of problems in the law enforcement industry and especially the law enforcement training industry. There is a difference between how officers are being trained and then how they're expected to perform in the street. There is a difference in expectations like we just talked about, and the potential consequences of us getting this wrong, as the police getting something wrong. Either it's looked at as being wrong by the courts, the public, the whatever, of getting it wrong. The consequences are being killed ourselves, someone else being killed who shouldn't have been killed. We should have been able to save them. Us killing someone who potentially didn't need to be killed, right? The consequences are grave. Civil lawsuits, criminal prosecution of police officers. The consequences couldn't be more grave, right? Yet, somehow our society is comfortable with police officers being trained in a pedestrian level, right? You own a gym. If I want to come learn how to lift weights, I'm pretty sure when I show up, it's not going to be a PowerPoint presentation about how to do a chest press. So I show up, hey, how do you do a chest press? Well, check out my PowerPoint. It's first you want to grip the bar, then you want to push, and then you go right on, you're trained. That's exactly how it is being a cop.
It's a great analogy.
We train them and they're not being trained realistically. We train, then we go, well, no, come on. We train them in how to use a taser, how to use a baton, how to drive, how to do first aid. We teach officers how to catch a football, throw a football, and run a play, but we never teach them how to play the game because it's all together. So if you're not a cop and you watch this podcast and you're like, maybe you're you have guns, you've got guns to protect your house, right on. Practice with those. Also practice the law. What does the law say about you using that gun? Practice what you're going to say on the 911 call. Practice what you're going to say when you go to court. You can't just practice the cool part, which is shooting the gun. That is the cool part.
Siloed.
Yeah, it's siloed. You got to practice holistically. Why? Because it leads to better performance in the field. Now, we're at a conference that's all about that with super motivated instructors, and they're here, and CalFIA does an amazing job of bringing people together. There are pockets of excellence around the nation where
agreed,
incredible training organizations are coming together, and they're like, hey, dude, no one else is going to do it. I'm going to do it. And we're going to change realistic ground fighting, not this 17-step twisty procedure of how to handcuff someone that we learned in the academy that doesn't translate to the field. We're going to do real things. My part of it, where I think Savage Training Group brings value, is that we train in decision-making, leadership, sense-making, how to control the chaos, how to set up the call, how the law, we teach tactics.
Yeah. So in not in the sense that probably most people think about that, so I love that. This is a great setup for kind of next question. So there's a couple words you mentioned already, and one of those was de-escalation. And the other word I think you said was they're not engaging. And when I think about that, I think about the word hesitation. You may have said that, and I don't remember. But there's this de-escalation word that's actually now been written into policy or law, case law and policy. Can we talk about that word for a second? De-escalation, and just because people like to use that word a lot. It happens in the institution of law enforcement, obviously happens in the public, and it's obviously happening at a much larger level because it's popularized. And I think you're gonna tell me why in the courts. And this is creating this huge space of ambiguity, which I think relates back to the hesitation. Can we just kind of cover de-escalation and at its highest level, then maybe dig into it a little bit?
Ask 10 people what de-escalation means, and you'll get 10 different answers. Ask the police, what is de-escalation? You'll get a different answer. Ask the public, what is de-escalation? Ask the news media. Ask your chief. Ask the suspect's family. Ask anyone, and you will have 10 different definitions. We as a society haven't even decided what de-escalation is. De-escalation is being talked about for police officers as if it's something the police, do to the suspect, like a verb. I either did or did not de-escalate him.
You have the ability or some power over him to do this.
Right. As if it's a magic wand or like a pixie dust that or I go to a scene and I de-escalated you. Well, I was a cop for 24 years. I have yet to develop the superhuman power to control other behavior, right? How do you get on scene? You're like, you're de-escalated, doesn't happen. But that's how it's framed. And it's not only framed by the media and the public like that. Our own police departments talk about it. Give you an example. If I'm a working cop and there's a guy with a gun sitting in the park and I'm going to commit, I'm going to unalive myself. I got to say that for the podcast. I'm going to unalive myself. Now, cops get there and they're negotiating. Hey, buddy, put the gun down, pal. We want to get you some help. If I leave cover, step in front of you, you've got less lethal, I step in front of you. The other guy's got lethal, I step in front of him. I leave cover and I just walk up to that guy as a cop and I go, hey, brother, give me the gun, brother.
Right.
Let's say he does give it to me and I disarm him. You would be saying, that's horrible tactics. First of all, we couldn't shoot him with less lethal because you got in the way. You could have created your own exigency by moving up on him. But let's just say it worked. True or false, my department will put that on Instagram tonight being like, look at what we did.
Look what a great job you did.
Look what a great job. Here at the police department, we value life. We de-escalated him. Yet, if it didn't work, I would be demonized in law enforcement and criticized for horrible tactics. That's not what we train.
Mm-hmm.
De-escalation.
And you'd be held accountable.
Yeah, that's right. I'd probably be dead. Mm-hmm. De-escalation, in my opinion, is something we can offer to people when appropriate. It's not appropriate under sudden attack. It's not appropriate when I'm imminent harm to a third party is a potential there. It's not appropriate in an active shooter situation. It's not appropriate in Uvalde when an active shooter has temporarily paused shooting and this has turned into it's not a hostage barricade. This is an active shooter. He's just not currently shooting. It would be appropriate there to go in and neutralize and likely shoot that man. De-escalation, however, is being spoon-fed to every cop in the academy as if this is this thing we can do. And yet I just began by saying we can't even define it, right? So what you're seeing now is police officers hesitating. Hey, whereas years past we would have used force on this guy, the officer's going, well, wait a minute. I don't want to get jammed up in IA. I don't want to get sued. I don't want to be looked at as being a racist. Mm-hmm. I don't know about this. And we're seeing cops get hurt. We showed a video in my presentation.
We're seeing suspects get hurt for similar reasons too.
You are absolutely right. Because sometimes a definitive use of force quickly, this thing is over and done with, the guy's in custody and we're done. Mm-hmm. But the kind of grabbing, not grabbing, we're dancing around with the guy and then it spirals out of control. And you're absolutely right. We have to use more force on him. So maybe as a society, maybe as police trainers, maybe as the police industry, we need to decide, first of all, let's define de-escalation and let's agree what this even is. Because how can I ask you to do something? How would you know when you did it if we don't define it?
The fact that it's even made it into case law, like the word in and of itself, boggles my mind when we think about what you just said, which is we don't even have a definition for this. More specifically, everybody's got a different definition of it. So we haven't agreed on anything yet. How do we get agreement? And I think some of the things I took away today from the presentation was walking into these situations, how do we avoid the hesitation? How do we make it more clear? Now, obviously, that's going to come through a training process, right? And you kind of talked about let's not silo this. Let's put things together. But I think for me, the question in this is, what are the things that can lead to that offering being made, right? Lead up to that offering being made and it actually being agreed upon that, okay, we're going to put the bat down, right? We're going to put the knife down. Because there's been plenty of cases, and I think things have been accelerated in probably the last 5 years with body-worn cameras, right? Obviously, social media and how things get the narratives can run away. We see portions of things. We don't see all of things. We see what is going to get clicks and likes or, get a news media station, the traffic that it needs. So I think what I was taking away from there today is what we hear a lot of is we need to be better at the hard skills, the fitness, the fighting, the firearms, right? The weapons-based entanglement stuff, bringing back to the firearms piece. But What are the things? What are some of the things that need to be trained in? Because those are skills that are learned, over time, and it's a constant practice, right? You can't ever. But there's some things from what I got today that could be downloaded, right, and at least talked about in this almost in a similar way that it's being currently done right now. Like, we're telling you what to do here. Like, just do this. If you just do this, it's going to avoid a lot of problems. And so maybe you can kind of just walk through some of those things in terms of like what you presented today. Because what I love to do is give the audience like a perspective of what I just listened to for an hour and a half in a condensed version. That is the problem with social media. That is the problem with thinking you can learn everything from a YouTube video, whatever else, unless you're going to an actual class and that the application of the training is done properly. Again, it's not siloed like a YouTube video for 15 minutes of a 3-hour presentation or 3-hour training session, which included literal hands-on application. So maybe can you try and bring it together and let people know?
Yeah. So police officers are going to be in confrontations with people who don't want to submit to arrest, right? This is happening all over America every day. Yeah.
Facts.
There's going to be us against them. This human adversarial confrontation is going to occur for whatever reason. We need this guy to do this. He doesn't want to do whatever this is. This is always going to be, this has been happening since biblical times. This is not going away. There's no peace and love on the street. Like, this is always going to happen, no matter what's in the recruiting videos.
It's not new. Yeah.
No matter what the department puts on Instagram and makes it look all sterile and nice. It's this every night. There's a confrontation between the police and the suspect.
It's happening right now as we're talking.
Right now it's happening, right? So to the extent we can, we want officers to be in the best possible positions to win whatever that engagement is. What does a win look like?
That's a great question.
To the extent we can, we want to avoid violent confrontations to the extent we can. We're not in control of everything. The suspect gets a vote in everything we do. Not literally like, sir, what would you like to do? But in actuality, he decides.
So make a decision.
We respond to this. He flees.
You can't control that.
Right. So we want to be in a position to handle all the things he can do. Well, one of the things we talk about in a Savage Training Group class called Critical Incident Response is we say this guy has about 8 things he can do. Fight, flee, lie in wait, comply, posture and delay, like, hey, you'll never take me alive, and on and on. Mm-hmm. Are we ready for each of those 8 things? Or are the tactics we're using only going to work if he complies? Like, if I jump out by myself, hey, you're under arrest. And the guy looks around and he's like, you're alone.
Right.
I think I'm going to take you on.
I'm not taking you too seriously right now,
Maybe I should have waited for my partners and, hey, all 10 of us are here. Now what are you going to do, buddy? You're under arrest. Oh, the guy goes, oh, I don't know. Stop rushing in.
Okay.
If there's an active killing or there's imminent harm to a third party, rush in. If there's not, slow down.
Slow your roll.
Speed up when there's an active shooter, imminent peril to a third party. Slow down when there's not. Get more resources and try to outmaneuver and gain a tactical advantage. Use cover, distance, and shielding if you can. Use containment. Try to prevent his escape. That's one of the things he can do. We're going to prevent his escape. Now you can't go anywhere.
You just took away one of his decisions.
Can we evacuate and limit his access to harming anyone? Now you're alone and he can't go anywhere. Do we have the ability to communicate with him? Is the language we're speaking going to work? Does he understand it?
Great question.
And is he not suffering from contaminated thought?
That's a tough call to make. How do we know this?
We're going to try. Sir, it's the police. You're under arrest. I need you to put down the bat and submit to arrest. Then we look at what his behavior is. Hey, I think this guy's suffering from contaminated thought, meaning lots of drugs, alcohol, or severe mental illness. Right. Probably not going to work us verbally talking him into it. Doesn't mean we have to rush. If we've got containment, control, and communication, maybe we could sit here all day. Well, how long are we going to sit here? Is there a compelling need to rush?
Mm-hmm. Go back to your first 2 things.
I don't care the streets are shut down. I don't care that we're going to spend a little money talking to this guy. Unless there's a compelling need to use force on him right now, maybe we do negotiate. Maybe we don't. This guy's trying to break into someone's house right now. No, we're not allowing that. Let's use force on him and compel behavior. We're not able to motivate him to do what we want. Let's compel behavior. And just kind of walking through some of those concepts, if we could just teach cops how to deal with the confrontation of a suspect who doesn't want to do what we want them to do, man, we would be like so far ahead. Instead of just training in silos, though, a lot of training is just firearms, just defensive tactics, just decision making, just legal update. No, it all happens together. So our training needs to be what's called interleaved, where, hey, Scott, you're going to show up. There's a brief PowerPoint, safety rules, couple of legal concepts. Okay, let's go do some scenarios. High fidelity, realistic scenarios, generally using force on force, where it is contextually rich, which is a fancy word for you get into a scenario and it kind of looks and feels real. And then we ask you, maybe in a scenario, to make sense of what's going on. So maybe you walk into a room and you're like, why is there the BJJ guy instructor over there and a bunch of wrestling mats? And then there's some first aid equipment laid out. And now they're, they got tasers on me. What is this scenario? Figure it out. Learn how to make sense of what's occurring, right? Using a baseball analogy. If I just threw 50 curveballs at you, you'd probably get pretty good at hitting
the curveball.
And then I go, Sky, you're looking pretty good with the curveball. Here's 50 slow pitches. You get pretty good at hitting that. But when we go to the actual game, you're horrible. Why? Because you never learned to read the pitch.
Never saw a slider, never saw a fastball.
And you never had to make sense of what. I told you, this is going to be 50 fast pitches. There's no thinking involved. And we do need to train better in the hard skills, because don't get me started on what police defensive tactics training, hands-on.
It's been a common theme.
Don't get me started, right? Yeah, it's been, we've beat that.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say beat it to death.
I didn't want this one to go there, because I'm sure you have opinions and thoughts.
Yeah, it's not good, right? So we'll tell the audience, listen, it's not good. We need to do better. But we do need to train better in those hard skills. We do need to prioritize fitness, shooting. We do need to do that, but we don't want to do it in silos. We want to spend a little time at the training session teaching whatever the skill is. Hey, here's the new piece of equipment. It's a taser. Here's on and off. Here's how you do the thing. Great. Let's go use it and learn when to use it, and in context, and not make every scenario at the taser training day a taser scenario.
Got you.
Let's make them negative scenarios where a taser would be the worst thing you can do. Hey, have that role player dump gas on himself. Hey, I'm going to kill myself. And then this is taser training day. You hit him with a taser, you're going to light him on fire, right? Create sense making.
We've seen that happen.
That's right. We create sense making opportunities, decision making opportunities. So our training classes at Savage Training Group is all classroom. We don't do any practical stuff. It's conceptual stuff. But we have classes about training.
So it's how to set up the training.
How to set up the training, or here is the training, and then maybe you can go back to your department and share these things. And we're trying to, kind of like I did today, like here's the concept, here's the big like cerebral concept. Here's the practical takeaways that you, the officer, you, the trainer, can take back and go like, man, I'm going back to my department. We're going to improve this, and that. Okay,
so the question then comes in, it's more training, right? We don't have money for this, right? We don't have the time for this. Like we've got all these, there's always I'll call it an excuse. There could be reasons, right? Let's just say they're roadblocks, right? One way or another. I'm curious, like where should that where should that type of training start, in your opinion?
You start with yourself. I'm going to get the training. I'm going to make sure my behavior is above board and is tactical and all that good stuff before I start telling other people how they need to be doing. So my house is in order first, right? If I go to hire a fitness instructor and he's a big fat body and but he's like, I can actually train you how to do it. Maybe able to, but this is not inspiring confidence, right? Yeah. So you start with yourself. You make your own. You're a team of one. I make sure I seek out the training. I get squared away. Then I start small, creating a sphere of influence. Hey, my beat partner, my buddy. Hey, let's you and I rehearse these things, practice these things. Have you seen this video? Have you seen this training? Let's you and me. And now my patrol team. Just start small. Problem is, a lot of trainers is they want to go back. They'll come to one of our training classes and we tell them, you raise your right hand right now. You are not sending a department-wide email today. And not for a week. You don't get to send any emails because you're going to go back and be like, hey, dear chief, like you're all screwed up.
You're fired up, man. Yeah,
dude, I know how to do this.
You want to change the world.
You got to start small, man. And you're trying to turn a battleship. The law enforcement training industry is broken, okay? The law enforcement training industry is broken. It has got a lot of problems. And for those of us who are trying to change it, you're trying to steer the battleship, man. You got to make small wins first. Just start with the low-hanging fruit, right?
Which would be you to start. Yep.
You start with you. Make sure I'm squared away. Then we start small. And then you start getting a little momentum and folks in your department are like, hey, you guys are catching all the fleeing suspects. When they flee from you guys, you boom, boom, set up containment, perimeter, got them in the You guys are making all these great arrests. How are you doing all this stuff? You guys always sound like you know what you're doing on the radio because you just sound squared away. How are you doing this? Like your fitness is in check, dude. And how are you maintaining all that? Lead by example, right? And then try to get some influence. Don't go back and be like, I'm going to call the chief, the mayor, and all this stuff. There is no more money for training. Okay. When people decided they wanted to defund the police, whether it actually technically happened in your jurisdiction or didn't, because most places it didn't actually happen, but the priorities were certainly there.
Yep.
And when your chief was asked to cut 15% out of his budget, the chief looked at the budget and said,
where again, go back to the low-hanging fruit. Where's the big numbers?
Yeah. And they said, hey, we're not going to respond on drug calls or homeless calls or whatever. And that money's going to be diverted to, these groups. And the cops are like, great, we don't want to go to those calls anyway. But guess what? Here's the dirty secret. There was no line item budget in the budget that said homeless call, drug call. But there was a fat line item for training. And it's one of the only discretionary budgets. Can't take it from salary. Can't take it from the vehicle inventory, to replace training is discretionary. It's the first one to get cut. And listen, I own a training company. I hear chiefs saying training is the most important. Our officers are the best trained in the world. And then they're not sending to a training that costs a couple $100. And my thing to those chiefs is you can pay now or you'll pay later.
Actually, I'm paying as the taxpayer.
You and me both. I'm a taxpayer too.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So okay. So what I want to know then is like who's being said. You talked about creating like critical mass, right? A little bit of momentum, starting with yourself, creating a little bit of critical mass inside your own circles and whatever your own sphere of influence was the term you used. And I've heard this said a lot. In fact, all the great ones that I've talked to, both on the show and off the show, that are having an impact, did exactly what you just described, and in some cases, like did raise their hand and say, "I want to be the guy in the training unit." And to do that, they actually had to take a pay cut to go back and do it. And that is not the majority. That is going to be a very small percentage of the whole, right? But they effectively went through each part of the process that you just said. Like first, they got really good at the thing that they made it a mission to get really good at whatever the thing is. Then they started to surround themselves with other people that wanted to do the same thing. And by osmosis or default, other people started kind of latching on and started asking them for it. And then once that started happening, then that kind of raises some eyebrows, whether it's up or down the chain. And then people are like, hey, what's going on? These guys are kind of doing a good job. And there's always going to be haters. So there's going to be other people that don't like what you're doing because they think they know better. Maybe they know some stuff and they just can't get past the fact that they think they know better. Or maybe they don't because what you're doing is potentially making them look bad, or for that person internally, this person is now working themselves closer to a promotion or whatever else, and that should be my spot for all the years that I've been on the department and all the great things that I've done or whatever else. There's all of these things, but they all start that way and they all get successful that way. So what I want to hear from like the Savage side of things is like who's being successful out there. You don't have to name agencies or whatever, but who are the people, like from a mindset perspective, where did they come from? Were they one of those haters, and that you were able to break through that barrier? And those are the strongest ones, right? The ones that are finally like the light bulb went on. Who are those people? Like who are you influencing, and how are you doing it? Would be the question I would ask.
Well, a lot of people in our industry, the law enforcement industry, love to make fun of the new guys. Oh, these millennials, this gen, whatever.
And it's an easy target, dude.
Yeah, they're soft and they're this and that. And
it's an easy target.
Yeah, and obviously, some of them are, I get it. But I'll be honest, some of those young cats are super into fitness.
Actually well-read.
Used to consuming a lot of information, always looking for source material. A lot of these young guys don't drink. They meal prep. Like they're pretty squared away, and they're looking at optimization in their own health and in shooting, and they've got the red dots, and they're like, hey, no issue there. And they're open-minded. And so sometimes it's those young guys that are like, dude, you're totally ahead of the game. It's some older, archaic kind of dudes that are, I think, losing relevancy. And it's hard to like stay up on all the laws. It's hard to stay up on all the training optimization. It's hard to read books about the science of learning. It's hard, right? It's easier to just to be like, that sucks. I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. And the way we've always been doing it is working. So why are you trying to like don't reinvent the wheel, mm-hmm. right? And so the dudes that I really vibe with and they're kind of like, yeah, you're my people. It's kind of guys that are in the middle, right? Maybe it's like
8 to 15 years.
That's it. It's guys that they're not new. They've been around the block. They've made their mistakes, and they have enough experience to understand the gravity of what we're doing, and to understand that some of the silliness stuff that's in training, they go, that would never work in real life. That's just so fake, you know. But they're not burned out. They're the juniors in high school. The freshmen are just like, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm just like new. The senior dudes are all checked out. And remember in high school, the sophomores are kind of the pricks. They're just like, screw you, freshman.
Yeah, not a freshman anymore.
Yeah, and they're kind of jerk, and they think they know it all. That's dangerous. Mm-hmm. The juniors are like kind of chill, you know. They're just like, man, I'm not checked out, but I have enough experience to know that I don't know everything. And some of those guys that are finding themselves now in the training units, and they're fighting the good fights. And man, like at today's conference where we are right now, it's all the people in this room all wanted to be here. They're all super motivated and they want to change law enforcement training. And they are from all over the country. There's people here from all over the place. And they're just like, man, send me, I'll do it. Because it's fun to do all the shooting. It's fun to do the BJJ. It's fun to do that stuff. It's not fun writing outlines, trying to get those past your admin, trying to get those past our state certifying board called California Post, which is like the overall state certifying board. That's the hard stuff. Trying to sell your chief on the fact that we need to make some changes here. That's, dude, if you would take that on, you're going to make things better for everybody. And there is a lot of people. I get to travel around the country. There is people all over this country who are cops, who are squared away. They are thinking outside the box. They're reaching outside of our domain and into the fitness industry, into aviation, into nursing, into sports psychology. They're just like reaching out and going, yeah, and how do we apply that to us to make us better? So all hope is not lost. There's a lot of great trainers out there trying to make things better.
Yeah, so a couple of things came up for me in that, and that is you, again, just in the compliments that I was making earlier about your ability to present and keep people engaged. You were very much engaging the audience and calling out people and pointing at people, and also you asked for a show of hands, which kind of confirms a couple of these things. So those folks that are sitting in that room are somewhere involved in this process of training or delivering important information to the masses, so to speak. You asked for a show of hands. Anybody in here in their 20s? I think there was one person who was in their 20s, which tells me, I mean, this could be making a massive assumption, but basically it tells me obviously everybody's over that. But the people that are sitting in that room that are actually delivering this stuff are probably in that 8 to 15. They're juniors or higher that have realized, like, I was a junior and this needs to change, and now I'm trying to influence it maybe from a longer careered, type of officer, or whatever it happens to be, administrator that's in the role. And so I've actually been saying that for a long time, and I've been saying it, but I haven't actually had anybody kind of confirm it, that it's like this zone called the junior zone, if you will, 8 to 15 years or whatever. I also find that they're in that, they're like, I know enough to know that I don't know some things. But I also know enough to know that training sucked, or that isn't going to work, or you're completely disconnected from the realities that I'm being faced with, or, as a sergeant, or, as a patrol officer or whatever, on the regular basis in the neighborhoods that I work in the city that I work in, and whatever else. And I think that also drives, this is the other thing that I've noticed, is it kind of drives that they're in that place of trying to make a decision of what they're going to do next. Like, what is the rest of this going to look like for me? And what I've been hearing is like, those are the people we need to step up. Those are the people we need to walk into those jobs, to take the promotion, to move on and, out of the cool guy stuff, like, man, promote off the team, become a sergeant, be gone for a year, do your time, whatever you have to do, so you can come back and really influence this thing for a time. And I find that to be I find the real challenge to be is that people don't want that job, man. They don't want that. So for all the reasons, right? So with that, having said that, like when they do come back and they are in that position, that's a next step. So now you made that decision and you're going to do it. Like, you're going to be on that training unit. You're going to be delivering this particular thing. The other challenge I ran that I came up with a few weeks back, I was interviewing a guy from the East Coast, is that now you're in a particular unit. So this goes back to the silos. You're in the firearms unit, as an example, or you're in the defensive tactics, combatives unit, whatever. And you believe this, and you know it needs to change, but you just said, like, it can't just be combatives. It has to be combatives with weapons. It has to be combatives with the law. It has to be, and nobody else is on the same page here. How do you overcome this?
Yeah. Good luck, first of all. No, it's hard, and you're just going to have to look for small wins first. So if I was this hypothetical person, I'm in the combatives unit, and would like to bring in the firearms, first aid, legal update guys to interleave a training day into a really cool scenario day where officers are touching everything. Well, I don't know that some departments are like, well, then we're going to have to make every instructor like an instructor in each thing. No, I don't think that. You just need to bring all those instructors.
But they should know what the other guy's doing.
Yes, they should. And I think we can just bring them all together and invite them in. That's the first thing I would do. So during your combatives day, because probably you do training silos at your department and probably you get a whole day of combatives, reach your hand out to the other units and say, can you please come join us here? Right? And hopefully we can get you overtime, get you adjusted off, however we're going to get you paid. I need your firearms expertise in my combatives day. Hey, first aid instructor guy, you got the least popular subject in all of law enforcement, right? I need you. You got to be here during my combatives day. And they're going to be like, oh, you need me? Yeah, bro, I need you. Now, can you design part of this scenario where we're going to make this combatives day turn into a first aid type of thing or whatever? Hey, legal update guy. Hey, you're my legal update guy. I need you when I'm debriefing after we do our roles or after we do our evolutions, you're going to be asking them these set of questions. What? Yeah, after the combatives day, I need you, legal update guy, to ask them, hey, why did you just do what you did? How does that comport with the law that we have, the use of force law? Or I'm going to play the part of an attorney. And now when let's say you just fired your gun and you shot this guy who had a gun, I'm going to play the part of the attorney. I'm going to ask you some stupid questions. Why didn't you just de-escalate him?
Right.
And I'm going to force you to articulate. Because a lot of the cops that I work with are great at the hard skills. They're great at firearms. They're great at defensive tactics or whatever we're calling it. They're less skilled when asked to articulate it. And that's why some cops get jammed up in court or in their reports, is that you suck at talking about it. What you did may be completely technically correct, but you can't explain it. So then you allow the attorneys to go, well, I'll explain it for them. You did this because you're a racist and violent and all this kind of stuff. So intermix it, and the first way to do it is just invite people in. Reach over the aisle to the other teams and invite them in. So
I think it's great advice, and it sounds like, quite frankly, that sounds very simple, right? And they can always say no, but if you don't ask, right, or don't at least try, you're certainly not going to get anything accomplished. That's consistent with what I've heard again about other folks that are those places in the country that are doing an outstanding job at trying to change things a bit and are actually making a change. And speaking back to the critical mass and the momentum piece, there are places that I've seen and kind of had corroborated, like they are influencing a much greater population outside their agency or their community. Other folks are coming in, which is reaching across the aisle. Mm-hmm. And what I also understand about law enforcement is that they like to copy one another. Like, what is this guy doing? Which can be good and it can be very bad. Again, This is the way we've always done it, so it's going to do. Well, it seems like this percentage of people aren't doing it like that anymore. And I've seen a lot of that body-worn cam footage, and it looks pretty damn good, right? And they don't have as many incidents. All of those things. So we talked about training in silos. We talked about, I asked you to define de-escalation, which you can't, right? Right? Or you did, right? In the most simple terms, right? But the other people can't, and they can't seem to agree on. We talked about the hesitation piece, the obvious need for certain levels of skill with tools, and how all those things come together. So in the presentation today, you were talking very specific, and you presented some very specific scenarios, again, body-worn cam footage of certain things, how this impacted things, what the law actually says. And you were setting people up to be, again, I think more cerebral about like if I'm faced with these types of things, which I'm going to be, this is the potential for it to be nothing versus being something really bad is the same every time you go out, right? Every time you roll out of the parking lot and onto the street for your shift. I think I took some notes. I grabbed some screenshots of your presentation, and I wondered if you could just like, because people didn't sit there and listen to all the things that I listened to, if you can kind of, I'll tee you up. I'll ask these were the 8 takeaways from your presentation. If you could just maybe elaborate on those a little bit to give some people some perspective on how this tied into what you talked about. I don't know. Does that make sense? I kind of rambled there for a second.
No, happy to.
All right. So takeaway number 1, which was, again, to set the audience up for my question, there was a lot of talk, again, when you're watching these scenarios, some of you are just looking at it going, oh my God, you're just shaking your head. And I'd seen them all, right? I spend entirely too much time on social media to my own demise sometimes, but I've seen them all. So like these weren't fresh to me. And every time, I shook my head just as hard and said, oh my God, as many times as I did the first time I saw it. But this one is, if disengagement is an option, then you have to train it. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, disengagement is fancy words for withdrawing or leaving and that kind of stuff. And there are times back in the old days, we would never disengage from anything. I mean, we would stay on scene and solve any problem. And there is a big, well, it's not big. There's some instances when us leaving is probably the best option, right? The classic case is when there's a suicidal guy with a gun, he's in his own house and we're trying to talk him out and he won't come out. Years past, we would kick in that dude's door and be like, we're here to help you. You can't kill you. I might kill you, but you're not allowed to kill yourself. And then our industry would kill this guy, right? And so we kind of evolved and like, oh, okay, this is a non-criminal barricaded subject. We're going to leave. We're going to try to talk him out, but we're going to leave. Doesn't solve the problem. It's just that we're not going to go kill him.
When you say leave, we're just going to go outside the door. We're going to surround the house. This is one of those call out type scenarios. This is what you're talking about.
And if it doesn't work and he won't come out, we're going to leave the scene.
Okay, gotcha.
Leave that dude in there.
Just want to clarify.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of laws that come into play there saying that the police don't have an affirmative legal obligation to get this guy
address this.
Yeah. We tried talking him out, but this is a problem that the only thing left to do is to go in and get him. And the juice isn't worth the squeeze.
The consequence.
Okay, cool. And what we talked about today is that sometimes, and there's been some cases where a mentally ill subject is the only want we have on this guy, the only interest the government has in taking this dude into custody is that he is mentally ill. We're not taking him to jail. We want to take this guy to the hospital on a mental health hold. Now, there's a case that we looked at today where the officers wrestled the guy to the ground. They used body weight to subdue him, and he dies in their custody. And the court said, that's an unreasonable use of force because you used lethal force on a guy who didn't commit a crime. You and I go, wait a minute. The guy was high on drugs. He was had pre-existing medical illness, and all we did was hold him on the ground.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the guy also have a knife that was also taken off of him?
He had a knife, and what the officers were trying to do was search him for additional knives.
Yeah.
The court said he had already given you the knife, and every cop goes,
Stop.
Yeah, I know. It blows your mind, right?
Oh no, but you didn't have to search him. He already gave you the knife.
Yeah.
There's no possible way.
He actually walked down the stairs with a pipe in his hand, and then he produced the knife that he had. So the officers are naturally going to try to search him, but the court just said some wacky stuff. It's a case called Scott versus Smith 2024. If you want to read it, you can. It's mind-blowing what the court said. So a lot of us read those court cases and went, Roger that. If there's no crime and the guy, the only interest we have is taking him to the hospital and he's going to resist, well, I'm going to be using body weight on him, and body weight can be lethal force now. So maybe what we should do is disengage, meaning, Roger that. Sounds like you don't want to go to the hospital. I guess we're going to leave. Now that's asinine. And if you were the neighbors, you're like, get that crazy dude.
You just had a pipe and a knife.
Yeah.
Right.
Now the cops are leaving, but can you blame the officers who are thinking that way?
No.
So if disengaging is a tactic we should use sometimes, we have to train it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Because I've been in 0 training evolutions, 0, where you're my role player and you resist my efforts and I let go of you and walk away. For 24 years, every single scenario that I was involved in a training evolution where a role player resisted, I overcame your resistance by force. So I'm not saying disengaging is the right thing. I'm just saying if that is what we're going to do, we have to train it, meaning there's going to have to be a scenario in where you resist and I let go of you. But right now what's happening is we're saying one thing, the courts are saying one thing, and the cops are training a different thing. And these are different. And the cops are going to get jammed up and be civilly sued in court or potentially criminally prosecuted for something they were trained to do.
Hence the hesitation. All right, next question. This was the next takeaway. Increase the difficulty of your scenarios. And this might be a little bit more, I think you kind of alluded to this just then and before, but what do you want to say about that?
Yeah, using a fitness analogy, if all I do, because let's say I want to get ripped and I come to your gym and all I'm doing is chest presses with no weights. Just the bar for me today, Scott. Thanks so much. Just crushing 100 of those. All right, bro. Hey, how come I'm not seeing any results? Oh, by the way, I eat like a slob at home.
Yeah, weird.
I think it's your fault. Yeah. Kind of thing. Like, this gym sucks.
Very real situations.
Right. So you'd be like, well, hey, dude, we got to put some weights on.
There has to be a stimulus here.
I go, wait, Scott, that's hard. It's hard to push the bar up when there's weights on it. And you'd be like, well, yeah, but challenge versus ability. And so we build muscle mass. But I don't like it's hard. That's police training. It's like no sharp corners, it's very sterile and nobody gets hurt because we don't want to get you hurt because then you miss patrol days. So when nobody gets hurt, guys, just go like 50%, when you're wrestling, just go 50%, right? Okay. Everything's real sterile, that's not preparing for reality.
No, actually it's setting you up for failure.
Exactly. We're training you to not experience hardship. So when you get in the hardship, when you're feeling physical pain, when you're physically wrestling on the ground and feeling exhausted, when you're being overwhelmed by circumstances, noise, light, ambiguity, confusion, darkness, all that stuff, that's the first time you've experienced that and you panic and you cannot perform admirably. What we want to do is recreate and make training harder than real life. So when you get out in real life, you're like, oh, that was actually kind of easy because you've trained so hard. We need to take up the challenge of the training to be almost just outside the ability of the student, right? So we're just right. We're meeting you right there. It's achievable. What we're asking you to do is achievable.
I hear what you're saying.
But it's hard. And you'll have cops say, oh, I don't want to do that, dude. Let's just show the PowerPoint. They're actually into it. When you start holding people to a high standard, they start performing.
They actually have to level up.
They love it that. And they go, actually, this is pretty cool. Yeah. This is different than online training, clicking through the little training thing. This is hard, but I kind of dig it.
It's interesting what you just did right there when you for people that are watching, you kind of postured up and you said like, oh, I'm kind of into this, right?
Yeah.
Which to me says confidence. Like I have more confidence in what I understand. I have more confidence in my ability because I legitimately feel like I just got challenged. There's a flip side to that is that when you are legitimately challenged and you fail, and we go back to the basic things like you're not fit enough, you're not strong enough, you're not mentally tough enough, all those things get exposed and you have choices you get to make, at that point as an officer and a coach or a trainer, or a leadership has choices they can make at that point. Like, okay, is this fixable? Right. And if it is, like, how do we do that? And maybe that means more training. Maybe that means more reps, right? Maybe it means more weight, right? Like all the things, if we take it back to the fitness analogy, those things aren't happening if you're just ticking boxes and going at 50% all the time. And then we wonder why, I don't, but we wonder why we see what we see when things go bad because they've never been faced with anything bad. And you mentioned the term hardship.
Yep. Yeah, increase the difficulty of the scenario trainings so that we see better performance in the field.
There's some risk in this, and we're just going to have to accept that, right? So there's probably an appropriate way to establish the same with, again, your fitness analogy is like, I'm not going to give you a 25% up on the bar. I'm going to give you a 5%, and then we're going to add another 2.5%, and then another 2.5%. We're going to do this over time. Got it. All right. Third takeaway, create a soundtrack and adopt a sterile cockpit. What is the sterile cockpit thing was an interesting one. So maybe you can go a little deeper on that.
So every day as a police officer, we're wearing body cams and you are creating the most important movie that's ever been shot.
For you.
Yeah. You're the producer, the director, the main actor. The question is, are you going to play the hero or the villain? What character do you want to be? Now, if you're on the tape and you're talking all kinds of mess, with your partner, hey, I hope this guy does get shot. I hope this guy does die. Screw this dude. If you're talking improfessionally, if you're using colorful language, which I should be the last person to ever tell you not to swear because I commit that all the time.
Heard.
Right? But I'm telling you, that's not a good thing. Okay, I'm a bad boy for doing that because you know why? It's driving the narrative in court. As police officers, we use the F word noun, verb, all the time. But to my mom who's sitting in the jury box, maybe they don't hear this very often. Now they're just focused on what the police officer's doing. You're creating a soundtrack to this movie, right? And that soundtrack, you have the opportunity to dictate how the soundtrack goes. So for the police officers, what we're instructing them today is lock up, very professional what you're saying on tape, right? And only professional. Avoid, to the best of your ability, cuss words, right? Yeah, you don't need them. You don't need them. And for those that say you do need them, you don't understand how these guys talk on the street. I got to talk in their language.
Yep, I hear that frequently.
Check this out. Let's say you and me go to a bar tonight. You say, Scott, man, what a great job you did on the podcast. I want to buy you a drink. And I accept, by the way. You take me into the bar, and on the way in, I step on a guy's shoe. I accidentally step on a guy's shoe, and he's wearing like brand new white Jordans or whatever. And oh my God, I made a big mess. Now, who should I be more afraid of? If the dude reacts with like, oh my God, I can't believe you effing did this, you son of a bitch. And he takes his shirt, I'm gonna mess you up. Should I be more afraid of that dude? Or if the dude, I step on his shoe and he looks at me and goes, step outside, we need to fight.
Mm-hmm.
Who would you be more afraid of?
Like
number two, right?
Right. The guy that's calm, cool, and collected, and he's about to get business done.
Then why are we yelling and screaming at people? Get on the effing ground, fucking get on the ground, all that kind of. Why are we doing that on the street then to people? If the more intimidating person is the calm, composed guy who's like, Yeah.
So I would compare this to. So I got I spent a little time in the combatives game. I got a lot of dudes that they can't hear out of their. It doesn't look like they should be able to hear out of their ears, or smell anything, right?
Right.
Their noses are flat and their ears look like Shrek. And when I've been to bars and I've been in situations, a bar, a concert, or whatever, where people, add alcohol, instant assholes.
Amen.
Right? It's usually how that goes down. And police officers are dealing with this all the time. And something gets going, somebody says something to somebody else. Those are the guys that are they're just sipping their beer, right? And they're the calm, cool, collected. They don't feel like they need to respond because they have the confidence to understand, like, number one, this isn't really a big deal. Right? Like, this is just somebody talking, going back to your guy who rips the shirt off or whatever. Like, okay, there could be a threat here, but I've been through this a few times. I understand what I'm looking at here. And this is just a dude that's talking a lot. Could it go bad? Yeah. And if it does, I know what to do. But I'm not going to be drawn into this by this thing. And I'm certainly not bringing my emotion to this. This guy's already fired up. His heart rate's up. He's breathing heavy, right? And his voice is elevated. His eyes are big, all of that stuff. I don't need to do that. I'm not going to give him any tells. I'm not going to contribute to his behavior. That's been my experience from the outside. And I learned very early on, like, if I start to escalate things, it's generally going to escalate beyond that. Mm-hmm. So I would agree with that 100%. I also understand, like, in the neighborhood I work in, right, there are certain language that gets used. Okay, I get that. I understand that. I've had some experience around that too. That doesn't mean you need to do that. Right. Or I think there's ways around that where you can talk in the what's the word I'm looking for? Like, in the circle, so that they understand that you understand them, but that doesn't mean you need to stoop. I guess is what I'm talking about. One of my favorite guys is in the Bay Area as well. Works for a local agency, and he does some stuff on Instagram. I think probably most people know him up there, and he talks about this quite frankly. He's like, look, like, I don't need to cuss and swear at people as much as I might want to. I've just kind of taken it out, and I've seemed to have more success that way. So anyway, amen. So when you say the sterile cockpit is just kind of relating to pilots and kind of how they handle their business inside. And there's a lot of things that could go wrong here. I'm responsible for a lot of things here. If we just handle everything this way to start, then we have levels we can go through versus going from like level 1 to level 10.
Yeah, the sterile cockpit is from aviation. Is a concept we stole from aviation. Basically, under 10,000 feet, commercial pilots and the co-pilot are not supposed to speak about anything unrelated to operation of the aircraft, because they said, like landing and taking off under 10,000 feet is the most critical phases of flight when the most problems can happen. It's not really when you're up at cruise. And so apparently a commercial aviation has a law or a rule that says, hey, under 10,000, we don't talk about, hey, how's the wife and kids or what'd you do last night? It's only related to the operation of the aircraft. And the point I introduced today is what if we adopted something like that where, and I showed a case example where what the officer said started the chain of events, what he was captured saying on body-worn camera, started the chain of events that is leading to a prosecution or civil case. And I was like, what if we just, whenever the video's on or whenever we're on scene or before the suspect is in custody, let's just make sure everything we're saying is related to the call. Let's no jaw jacking. And it sucks, right? Having a body-worn camera on all the time, especially on a prolonged incident, 3-4 hours, barricaded suspect.
I guess I didn't consider
you're
that.
like, bro, like this is boring and tiring. And you're just like,
I gotta take a piss. I'm hungry.
I've been staring at this door for 4 hours, like, oh my, it was cool for like the first 30, you're like locked in. And then you're like, oh God, I'd rather just let the guy go. I'd rather do anything than this, right? And you just start talking because we're human beings.
But that's all being recorded.
It's being recorded. And something you say let's say it was not improper, but it just gives fodder for the attorneys to be like, nah, what you meant was this, what you meant was this kind of thing. So
true or not, doesn't matter. It gets brought to the table.
That's
and
right.
Everybody hears it. Okay. Next one is change your, quote, block and silo training, unquote, which we talked about. I don't think we need to go into that one too much. The fifth takeaway was require your students to articulate their force decisions. And you alluded to this, but maybe you could give some more specific examples. I think there was a really good one you used today.
Yeah, we talked about oftentimes, we mentioned a little bit earlier in this interview, is that sometimes we're good at the hard skills, the manipulative skills, which the motor things, and those we're generally good at them because they're the most fun, right? If I said, hey, do you want to come to an 8-hour class about report writing? You'd be like, not really.
Hard pass.
We don't have a class about that because how the hell are we going to market that?
Right.
I'm pretty good at marketing. I'm not that good.
However, an important skill.
And very important.
Right.
And a lot of times as police officers, we are trained in how to do the thing, how to do the skill. But when someone asks us to explain why you did it, we're less skilled at that. And so forcing our students to articulate, why did you do what you did? I want you to tell me in words why you did what you did. I want you to, let's look at the law, okay? And let's say it's a scenario where you just were involved in a shooting or you used force on this guy. Is what you did legal? Yeah? Okay, explain it to me. And as the trainer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to softball you some questions like, hey, why didn't you de-escalate the guy? Well, he was shooting at me. But why didn't you? Well, you see, shooting at someone is a deadly force threat and I was afraid I was going to die. So okay, now let's make it a little harder. How is what you did within the confines of our state's use of force law? Here's the section. Now compare what you did to this and explain to me how it's this. Oh, okay, a little bit more challenging. Explain to me what the suspect did, but now tell me the pertinent negatives, what he didn't do. And pertinent negatives is you're describing the actions. Cops always do that. Suspect did this, then he did this. But what didn't he do? Well, at no time did he try to just plant his feet and stay still. And he just kept coming at me with a knife. At no time did he plant his feet and stand still, which perhaps could have given us an opportunity to use other resources and techniques. At no time did he try to flee just to get out. He just tried to leave. Nope. At no time did he offer a legal explanation for what he was doing. In other words, hey, officer, I'm not the guy that they got called about with a knife. I'm a good citizen who just disarmed this dude. I'm just here to give you the knife. The guy you're looking for went that way. At no time did any of these happen. What your client did, attorney, is kept rapidly aggressing me, saying, I'm going to kill you with this knife. And he didn't do all these other things. So talk about what he did and what he didn't do. And forcing our officers to constantly articulate their force is going to make them better at giving a statement after they've used significant force or writing the report.
In your experience, at what point does this is an officer typically put into that environment?
To explain what they've done after they've used force with almost no training. And now the young officer is sitting in court and for the first time they're testifying. They've never done this before. They have no training in testifying. Their adversary, because this is an adversarial conflict, the other side's attorney is well-trained in what they're doing, well-rehearsed in how to trip you up, well-rehearsed.
Tons of reps.
Absolutely.
Coached in law school, coached at their new law firm.
You better believe it. And then now we got a young cop sitting up there who's getting mush mouth every time they ask him a question because, oh, gee, we failed you, man. Hey, young officer, we never actually trained you in this part of it. You're great at shooting, great at, BJJ, great at all that stuff, but we never actually trained you in the rest of it, which is how to explain what you did.
Hung them out to dry. That's disturbing. And again, going back to my frustration about having these interactions with police officers, explain to me what's going on them not being able to. This was a bad incident for me, not for them, right? And you can't help me reconcile what the challenge is here. If you can't do that to me, and I never put that together until very recently, probably in the last 48 hours, that if you have to stand in front of court and defend yourself because you did do something, well, that was the hesitation why they didn't do anything in the first place, because they're probably not confident that if they go to court, they can say this, whether what they did was lawful and justified or not. That's a rough one for me that I'm going to be thinking about. This one's going to come up again, I'm sure, several other times. All right. Number 6, treat every call as if it could end in a shooting.
Yeah, there's been a lot of recent court decisions. One called Barnes versus Felix, which was a Texas case that went to the United States Supreme Court. So this is, for the first time, there's a national standard that when law enforcement officers use force, typically when they shoot somebody, that force will be evaluated not just by the moment of threat, meaning the guy had a gun or he's trying to run the officer over and the officer shot him. For the first time, the United States Supreme Court says the proper way to evaluate force is through the totality of the circumstances, which include pre-force conduct. In other words, yeah, officer, we know you shot him, but how'd you get there? An example of that is if a guy's trying to run me over, the law would allow me to shoot at him to try to save my own life. Right.
I know where this is going.
So
okay.
Now, but if I just run out, I'm a cop, and I just run out in the middle of the freeway and I stand in the middle of the freeway, there's going to be a car coming at me. So does that mean I can shoot him? And you would say, no, Scott, come on, that you created your own exigency there. And what the law looks at is, yeah, at the moment you shot him, true, there was a car coming at you, the moment of threat, but how'd you get there? And so now it's going to be a nationwide standard. We were already dealing with this here in California from many years ago in a case called Hayes versus San Diego. And then it became codified in our state law, not just case law, our state statutes on how we can use force in 2020 completely changed.
Right. So that's how I got introduced to Joshua.
That's how you know about this stuff.
I know about Calfia, yeah.
Yeah, so we're, in some states, we're already up on it. We're like, hey, Texas, welcome to what we're dealing with here. So the problem, though, is that how far back in time is the court going to look at what you did and how it relates to the shooting? Answer is, we don't know. So is it what you did right before the shooting? What you did from the time you received the call? What you said in briefing? What you posted on Instagram 2 weeks ago?
Crazy.
We don't know how far they're going back in the pre-force conduct. So treat every call like it could end in a shooting, because what calls could end in a shooting? Anything, right? You could be on a welfare check, a pedestrian stop, anything could end in a shooting. So you're going to have to now treat every call like it could end in that. Because if it does end in a shooting, the officer's going to wish we could go back in time. Man, I would have not canceled my second unit. I would have called for additional resources. I would have said this on the radio. I would have checked this, premise history at the house or intel on the house. I would have done all these things if I knew I was going to get into a shooting. Because when they go to court, they're going to ask, so did you call for the psychological team? No. Isn't it true the policy says this is a 2-unit response to this alarm call and you canceled your second unit because he was on a meal break? Well, I didn't want to interrupt his eating. Well, maybe if you would have continued him, he could have used a taser. But because you deviated from policy, you had to shoot him. See how easy that is? When
I heard you say that down there, the Instagram thing made sense to me. But what I heard you say about how far back they can go, they get to decide that. Nobody else. Like the defense attorney gets to do and say whatever, whether it's relevant or not. Certainly, I guess a judge could sit there and go, strike that, whatever. But the jury heard it, right? Everybody in that courtroom heard it. And I think, especially if you're a cop that's out there doing work, and you may be in these doing work and doing good work, and you happen to be in court quite frequently because you're doing work, and now you've been involved in these types of incidents. And yet there's a bit of a record, if you will. And regardless of whether that was cleared by the DA, the agency, the chief, the internal affairs division, or a court of law, right? These things keep coming up. And so you're in front of another jury and they're hearing the same things. And they're just going to keep reaching back and repeating stuff and putting things in people's heads, whether that's the judges' heads, the defense attorneys' heads. Defense attorneys talk to one another, right? They're going to do their research and whatever else. The jury is going to be hearing this stuff, and this stuff hits the news, and the freaking, news media is going to get a hold of it. Oh, we got this officer who seems to be involved in a lot of things, right? Never mind that all of those things were justified by the book, followed policy, followed law, they were cleared. But this guy seems like a bit of a problem. And if you're that 8 to 15 year person that's been doing work for a long time, it's likely you've been in this scenario a few times. And if you're also out there posting stuff on your social media, and again, like, what were you doing with regard to the policies and whatnot? If you give them any loopholes on top of negative byline or narrative that they can create for you, I could see where that could be a huge problem. I never considered that. That's a little scary.
Yeah,
it's a little scary.
Just make sure your pre-force conduct is above board all times.
Yeah, so this just goes back to, like, again, hesitation. Why we likely see a good deal of it. All right. Number 7, last 2 here, are rehearse memorization items for clear commands. And just to set this up a little bit, like, we've watched several videos. The debriefing room guys were up yesterday. I only got a few minutes of that one, but you guys shared some similar videos between your presentations because they're super effective in getting the message across. And that is, I'm sure you can probably give the example, but I've seen those videos. Everybody else has seen those videos. There's a lot of people talking, a lot of cops talking, a lot of things happen from a lot of different angles on body cams. And you're going, man, that looks like chaos in there. So maybe, and if you leave that room for somebody else to think that or say that, who's going to be holding the bag for that one at the end? So maybe go through that one.
Yeah, I actually showed a video from the briefing room in my presentation.
Oh, right, yeah.
The briefing room is a online video training tool for sergeants to lead briefings in the police departments. And when I was a sergeant, I wish I would have had that. And one of the videos I showed was them breaking down a particular case that happened in San Jose, California, where guys walking down the street with a gun, officers are challenging him because they say, like, hey, he's actually going down the street and there's a bunch of high school kids down the street. And they're yelling different commands at him. Problem. Officers, one are saying, like, drop the gun. Others are saying, don't move. Some are saying, get on the ground. Others are saying, freeze. Like, these are conflicting commands. And when this thing went to court, they end up shooting him. When it goes to court, the court says, he's not actually resisting your commands until you've given clear, unequivocal commands and he's had the opportunity to comply.
There's a lot there, man.
Oh, there's a lot there, right? But see, this is what the court's saying. And if we just train in our own little world, we just train shooting, we just train combatives, and we don't think about how is this going to play out in the complete context of being a police officer. We can, all day long, we can say, this sucks. I don't like what the court said. They don't care what we think. The court does not care what Scott or other Scott thinks about this.
Clear.
They don't care. And they make the rules. Like, we're the cops. We don't make the rules. We are playing their game, and we've got to look at what they're doing. And they say asinine things. Like I said earlier, he already got one knife on him. Why you got to search him for more? They say crazy stuff. But to this point is rehearse memory items, meaning, like, instead of saying stop, don't move, drop the gun, all this kind of stuff, what we teach at Savage Training Group is identify, order, warn. Police, don't move, or force will be used against you. Identify, police, order, don't move, and warn, or force will be used against you. It takes 2 seconds to say. It's easy to rehearse. It's right when you come out of the car and you see the guy, oh crap, there he is. Hey, police, don't move, or force will be used against you. It's addressing a lot of things that are in the law, which require us to identify ourselves or warn the person, or you're telling them in clear commands, don't move. Now, we can get into more nuanced commands after that, and we will, like, hey, with your right hand, or move over here, or whatever. But that's a great just thing to blurt out, and it's a memory item. Everybody memorize this so that when we all jump out on scene, I'm saying the same thing you are.
Right. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes because I want to make another point about what I heard you say there. If people are trained that way and we're training together that way, this is what we do. So we've been coached to do this. There's another part about the commands piece that I picked up. It's kind of maybe a subsection to this. I can't remember if it was in that particular part or something else you were covering. But when multiple officers show up on scene, that was the scenario that you just described, where you've got multiple officers yelling different things, is what happens, who's going to be doing that, right? Maybe can you just talk about that a little bit? Because obviously it's getting hairy. Things are getting a little hanky right now, right? So everybody's excited, right? That's natural response. Heart rates are up a bit. Where are you? You've got officer that's been on 2 years who hasn't seen very much of this stuff, and you got officer that's been on 15 years. It's like, this is not my first rodeo, right? And they're all handling it their own way, and they're all yelling stuff. So you talked about taking command of command of the situation. Can you just speak to that? Because I thought that was an important one for me as a guy from an onlooker, if you will.
Yeah, when you're on scene by yourself, and let's say you've arrived on scene by yourself and you're confronting a dangerous individual, you're having to do everything. You're having to be lethal. You have no less lethal option. You're having to be hands in case you need to go hands on. You're going to, if he runs at you, you're going to be giving commands. You're working the radio. You're kind of the boss. You're team leading this whole thing. You're thinking about containment. What if he runs? We need contain. You're having to do everything. Well, humans are not good at doing a million things at once. So as additional units start arriving, what we want to do is having everyone take a piece.
We're delegating. So if we train in a contact team concept or react team concept where we understand the roles are basically going to be lethal, less lethal, hands and commands, someone to work the radio and someone to be the TL. Maybe the TL could work the radio too, no problem. But there's kind of like, let's say 5 different things we're going to do. Is if I get on scene and you already have lethal out, well, I know I'm going to take one of those other things. Now, depending on the angle or if there's a structure or a vehicle, we may need additional lethal, but that's beside the point. And if I'm the third guy there and I see lethal, less lethal, and there's already someone who's going to be hands or accept the arrest, maybe I'm the fourth guy and I go, hey, I have commands, right? I have commands. That's my job.
Everyone should be now quiet, stop yelling, and let me talk to this dude, right? Hey, sir, it's the police. You are under arrest. Listen very carefully what I'm instructing you to do. That way we don't have to use any of these equipment on you. You are under arrest. Oh, I didn't do it. I get it. But right now we need to detain you. Okay, follow my instructions to the T, okay? I want to make sure you understand them. Put your hands way above your head. Okay, see what I'm doing? Keep doing. And walking this person into custody. If you give them clear commands and you can talk them into custody, that's a win, bro.
Right.
That's a win.
Right.
And I know it's like, I want to do the shooting and I get it. You want to do all the fun stuff. But dude, if you've got some skills and today is your day to talk to this guy and you can talk him into handcuffs, the easier for all of us. Probably no lawsuits, probably no
court dates.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's a huge win and it's a skill and we got to rehearse that skill. So announce, I have commands. When you get on scene, if you're like, everything else is being covered, be like, I got it. And everyone else needs to shut up and let this dude talk.
So different but similar just in terms of having those rehearsed things happening. We're talking about a rehearsal. Like if everybody's showing up, knows that they have a role and knows what everybody else's role is supposed to be, it puts that, when you start to give commands or you're having that communication, it puts everybody in a better position. And then you don't have this conflicting commands that don't meet the compliance rule that's in the statute or whatever else. Okay.
Right.
Again, so that might be very elementary to cops that are listening to this, but for me, again, as an onlooker, seeing things happen, through body cam footage or in my neighborhood or whatever else, just like understanding that. Thank you for going through that last part. All right, last one. Number 8 was commit to using force or get off the X.
Yeah, this is to the hesitation piece. You've seen the same videos I have where cops are hesitating to use force.
It's rough.
And it's times when we saw one recently where an officer was disarmed and by the grace of God, the mentally ill suspect didn't shoot the cop. Despite terrible tactics, the officer was not shot. That is, I don't even think it was a conscious thought by the offender. I think it was just he's so whacked out for whatever reason he didn't do it.
Yeah, people remember this one. This was the female officer sitting in the car. Guy comes up shirtless to the driver's side door and just reaches in and he's on her, just like real fast.
Yeah, she's in the car with her gun out and it's like, this is not a great position to be in. And so, and then I showed another example of officers where they backed up, a bunch of city blocks and this guy eventually comes at him with a knife. So, I understand why cops are hesitant to use force. I understand it. I'm not a proponent of it, but I do understand it. However, I think with the more education you get, when you really understand the law, when you get really good at fighting, really good at shooting, really physically fit, you do feel more confident.
It makes that decision-making process much clearer, probably, yeah.
If you go through hard training, you're like, I can actually make this decision quickly, and I know when I can use force and when I can't. But if to these officers who are, for whatever reason, not going to use force when they should, I don't know why that is. That's between you and you. I can't explain it. But to those who are going to do that, then do me a favor, please. If you're not going to use force when it's indicated, save your life and get off the X. Like, move from there, right? I don't want to see cops running away from danger, but I guess
freezing in place is not
freezing in place is not an option. And talking to people, being like, like this dude's coming at your car and he's shirtless, he's all whacked out, and he's like, he's there showing some sort of hostile intent. Me standing here and being like, hey, sir, so tell me what's going on. That's not going to work, right? So
yeah, how do you even explain that part?
You negotiate when we negotiate with people, like in tactical SWAT types of things, when we're negotiating with somebody, it's from a position of power.
Right.
We're like, hey man, look outside your house. It's surrounded by 20 SWAT dudes and a Bearcat and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, would you like a pizza or Pepsi? What can I get you? Okay. And so, yeah, mom and dad didn't love you. Great. Got it. Hey, why don't you come on out? But dude, if he comes out and goes, I'm going to shoot everybody, it's like, no, you're not.
Right.
We're negotiating from a position of power. Yeah. We don't negotiate mano a mano with a physically capable adversary, right? Who could offer us violence. We don't just negotiate like, hey, buddy, hey, pal, right? Use cover, time, distance, shielding, whatever. And if you're that officer who's, for whatever reason, again, I don't know why you're not using force on this guy, but if you're not, then please at least save your own life. Get off the X. Move. Get out of there. Go over there and remaneuver, reconfigure. Let's get more bodies there. Whatever.
Do something.
Because you're not using force and you're not moving off the X. What are you doing? You're just standing there and being like, I'm hoping I'll be able to de-escalate him or something like that. And that's going to get cops killed. And you're going to make us have to use more force on that dude. So if your goal was just to
create a bigger problem,
de-escalate and all this kind of stuff, it didn't even work. Now we have to come use more force because you didn't want to use a smaller amount of force. Like in the video we're sawing, knock that guy back. If you find yourself, oh crap, I'm in my car, dude's on top of me, either close your door and drive away, remaneuver, or knock that dude back and deal with the problem. But what is not allowed is to stay on the X and let you get injured. And I've read a lot of case law. And for our training courses, we have to read laws and try to interpret them and operationalize them. It's really boring. I've never seen one law in this country that says you as a police officer have to get hurt or killed. I've never seen that, right? So as wacky as all these laws are, as awful as things can be sometimes in the court, I've never seen one that says you have to get hurt.
That one doesn't exist.
That's right.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the word de-escalation, which you used there, and I think that's it. When the options that I'm comfortable using don't work, I better have an answer. Like, what is that going to be when talking doesn't work? What's it going to be? Which goes back to training, silo training, real scenarios with intensity, right? Mm-hmm. Escalation of intensity and all those things. So I thought that one really wrapped it all together. There was so much depth in that presentation, and I thought you did a really great job of kind of readers digesting each kind of point, because you went through and showed examples and got, again, audience engagement with some of that stuff too. And that I learned a lot in 90 minutes, and you confirmed for me what I thought I'd remembered. And then you also brought to the surface what I didn't remember and probably couldn't have, because in a lot of cases, a lot of that I was drinking from a fire hose. If I'm an officer, a brand new officer that's hearing all this for the same time, I got to imagine they're feeling the exact same way. So there has to be follow-up, and you provided, I think this is one of the major missing pieces with a lot of the training that I see happening, whether it's for civilians or for cops, is the support material and the follow-up and the ability to review and the tools and the things that Savage, like as an example, Savage Training Group provides for people. Like, you just heard me say a lot of things. Pardon me. And there's a lot of stuff to this. Some of it's probably going to stick. I know a lot of it isn't. There's a lot of detail to that. You talk about this stuff every day. It's very fluid, and it works. But that follow-up and like, what does that look like? So that's what I wanted to ask you next, is we just kind of wrap this thing up and getting this Savage. So when somebody goes to your class, where you're going to get the opportunity to pitch this thing, but when they come to your courses, they come to your classes, all right, we paid for the 3 days, Scott, like, and that was really great. We're ready to change the world now, right? And you said, like, be cautious of this. We're not going to do that. What does it look like after, right? Yeah. What's the follow-up look like? What should people expect from Savage Training Group?
It's a great question. So our training is pricey, and it's because we're hiring the best instructors, we're doing the most research, and we are executing at the highest possible level.
Love that statement.
Yeah. And so
confidence.
I'm never going to race someone to the bottom and give you budget training.
Good for you.
You're going to get what you pay for
Good
with
for
us.
you. Yeah.
So when you come to our training class, one of the things that I'm very excited about is that, yes, you come to a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, whatever the training class is, but you're going to leave with access to a Dropbox file that we only give to students that pass the course. And in that is links and resources and videos and, lists and graphs and all the kinds of cool stuff that's there. And what I'm most excited about, and we've completed this for a handful of our courses so far, but my goal is to every single time you go to one of our classes, you then have the opportunity to opt in only for the people that with a growth mindset, only for the people that want to learn. You have the opportunity to opt in to, we're going to send you one video a week for 8 weeks, 10 weeks of the instructor you saw rehashing material that you've seen.
Perfect.
Right? In short little 3-minute, 5-minute videos. And the purpose of that is to interrupt forgetting. Because we know from the modern science of learning that spaced retrieval, meaning I'm thinking back of what I learned last week, and that process in your brain of having to reach back and think about it and now bring it to the front creates a stronger synaptic connection, creates the real learning.
Connection, yeah.
It's more durable. So we've got it done for a handful of classes now. And so like you go to our class and then you kind of opt in, a little QR code, put your email in, boop, here's an email in your inbox, once a week for 8 weeks.
And you can consume it on your time when you have the space to do it.
Yeah.
You're not being locked into a, voluntold, you got to go do this. You can do it on your own. So that was not, I did not know about that. So for the question that I just asked, that was not preloaded. I didn't know, but that's how I learned. I think in my experience in the training business, training clients, training coaches, training employees, and whatever else, especially with all the information that people are being just fire hosed on a daily basis, right? Like we are not built as humans to take in the kind of communication and things that we get on a day, whether it's from social media, the DMs. Like I have 17 email accounts. I work with three businesses, right? I have 17 email accounts, right? And some of them, there's 50 emails a day, right? And of that, there might be 20 of them that are actually pretty significant emails. Some of them I get 1 or 2, right? I get DMs constantly, right? And they give me anxiety because I want to make sure people are trying to reach out to me. I give back the text messages. Mm-hmm. Like right now, I'm trying to maintain a 36-hour response time on the amount of text messages I get in. There's phone calls, right? I also have a family. Like I've got a freaking life, right? I have a job,
right.
I have all these kind of things. Like we are not built to handle all of this. So to think that what you heard 3 hours ago is going to stick 3 days from now is kind of ridiculous. And I think, again, when you go into these training scenarios, whatever they are, in whatever field, whatever, and you go, oh, you went to 3 days of training, you're checked off, you're qualified. That could not be anything any further from horrible. I guess is what I'm saying. I think there has to be that stuff. And I know that not everybody's evolved to that, and I think it's coming around, but you have the opportunity. There's so much technology out there and ways to deliver this information and giving the person on the other end the choice on how they consume it rather than, hey, we're planning for this training. It's happening in 3 months. You got to book hotel and whatever, and you get there and all that stuff goes down. There's stress going in, and then there's stress like, well, now I got to catch up with all the damn emails that I didn't answer for the 3 days I was in that training. I think that's an important takeaway. I think for other instructors and other training companies to really be thinking about like, what are you really doing to provide the continued resource to your client? And on that note, like you've been doing this a while now. This is not your first rodeo. You've been going down this road, and I'm sure now you're getting in front of people that you've been in front of before for different classes, repeat classes. You've got people that have been doing the thing for a while, and you're starting to see that evolve. I think that's really important too. Is you're always trying to, as a business person, you're always going to be trying to establish new markets or new clients, mm-hmm. but taking care of the ones that you had, I think, is super important. And this just leads back to law enforcement. I think they do a fucking horrible job with it. Mm-hmm. Like you put somebody through an academy, you put them through an FTO program, you take them on unless they get onto some team that they can stay on for some time, right, where they are being fed some information and they can learn from others, and somebody's putting their arm around them, and some other times they're getting hit in the back of the head for messing up or whatever else. I don't think as a tax-paying citizen that I should expect for an officer to get better outside of by their own luck and their own I think like internal drive to want to get better. And if you think as a civilian that that's what your cops want to do, you could not be any further from the truth. There are some really great ones out there that want to do that, but it's not all of them. Which one is showing up to your door when you have to call 911? So I guess the point in my going on that diatribe is I think that's really important. And based on what I witnessed today, it was only 90 minutes, and the time that we spent here today, I can only imagine that material is actually very, very good versus just doing an Instagram video and throwing it out there and trying to make an impact for likes and things like that. So I can appreciate that from the trainer side of you. Okay, so if people want to get into Savage Training Group courses, they want to go to classes, they want to reach out to you, find out what this is about. You know, Scott, I heard what you said. I kind of like it. It sounds good, but I'm not really sure. Why do we need you? What do they do to get more information, man?
Yeah, go on our website, savagetraininggroup.com, and it lists all the courses we have. It lists the current schedule. It lists how your agency can host the class. And then, like I said, if you're maybe in private industry and you're like, I'd kind of like to get some of our executive protection types of people, that kind of training, we do that for select, clients. And especially I'm located in Silicon Valley like you are, so we have a lot of those types around. But our bread and butter is the men and women of law enforcement. That is our focus. That is, for every 1 hour of a training class that we present, there's probably 100 hours that went into planning that, and then another 50 hours every year, because you got to keep updating it, keep evolving it. So our training, I'm trying to be the best. I'm trying to be the best law enforcement training possible. And so I ask that you come check it out and check out what we have on the website. We're on Instagram. We have a lot of stuff on the website, and there's always like something to download or a video to watch or free stuff to kind of check out, because I want to be providing information, because I want the cops that respond to my house in my time of need to be the best trained, and society's asking them to perform like Navy SEALs. Well, let's give them Navy SEAL level training, right? Let's make sure the training matches the expectation we're having of cops, and that's my goal.
Fair enough. All right, so just in closing out here, we already talked about this. You're local to me. Like, we're literally like kind of down the street from one another, right. Not figuratively, literally. We had connected quite some time ago about getting you in. It's on me for not having you into the studio, because it's literally not a logistics problem, which is generally the case. Right. But when I found out you were going to be here and this was on the calendar for me this year, I was like, dude, we're going to be we're absolutely the same room. This has to happen. So for doing that for me and taking time out, I just want to say thank you for everything you provided me in terms of time, both in the audience today, but also here, and for the audience that's listening and watching. And that said, I could see where this conversation has a lot of other fingers that come off of it. And given that you're so close to me, I'm going to ask you to make me a promise. And that is, there's going to be some things that are going to come up, and I know I'm going to have questions about them. And I would just like to reserve the right to have you back into my studio and host you properly down at the gym, and maybe talk about those things someday, to hear from your perspective, and also maybe provide an opportunity to talk more about what you're doing and how you're doing it, because I really think this information is valuable, not just to police officers, but to the public that does give a shit, because I think most people do believe that law enforcement is good, and they're trying to do the best job they can. Right. And when they have those interactions, I believe that most of them are very positive. That's been my experience my entire life. Have I had some uncomfortable ones, some negative ones? How much of those were my fault? None of them. None of them were my fault.
Right. Of course.
I didn't do anything wrong. My point being, I believe that people need this information. Yeah. And so if there's anything that I can do to help you put out your information and help get this in the minds, in the eyeballs, and in the institution at any level, don't hesitate to ask. I'd be happy to help.
Well, I appreciate you having me on. It means a lot for your support, and I appreciate the mission you're on too, which is trying to provide information to people, and let's kind of lift the veil on things, right? This isn't state secrets. Let's 100%. Talk about this stuff, and let's talk about the dirty, the messy, and let's really analyze this, and let's all provide insight, because I think we all want American police officers to be successful, right? On the street. We want them to be successful. And so let's all kind of work together to make that happen.
Agreed. Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.